All set. All set. Thank you very much, and everyone, welcome. Good morning. My name is Elisa Blanda, and today we are going to have one of our last webinars for the year. Unfortunately, one of the last, and you'll have to wait for 2024 to have us again month by month with new webinars. So again, welcome, Elisa Blanda, and I'm the Small Donations Programs Officer. And today we have the seminar on exercise of connectivity, ECOME, and network of connectivity. And with us is Lourdes Vasquez. We're going to introduce her in a few moments. Our seminar today is Connectivity Network for Monitoring Reef Fish Postlarvae. We have simultaneous interpretation today, so you can select English or Spanish and interpretation mode. And you can select the language that you wish to listen to. To listen to only the interpreted language, you can put the original language in silent. So again, welcome. We're going to follow some rules this morning. This is space for learning and to respect our colleagues. Please turn off your cameras and microphones during the seminar and put your full name, country, and organization in the chat so that we can see where you are following us from. You can put your questions at any time in the Zoom chat. And if you participate in Facebook Live, you can also share your questions in Facebook on our Facebook page. Your questions will be answered at the end. Lourdes will answer your questions herself. We also, and just in case, the opinions expressed in our seminars are the exclusive responsibility of our speakers and do not represent the opinion or position of MAR Fund. So again, I want to welcome everyone. Again, thanks for being with us in this 17th session. Our special guest today is Lourdes. She's a master's in science, and she's a researcher in the El Colegio de la Frontera Sur institution. She's a biologist of the Faculty of Science of the Autonomous University of Baja California. She has a master's in science for the Center of Investigation Higher Learning in the CICES. She's also the head researcher in the Colegio de la Frontera Sur, ECOSUR. She is a specialist in taxonomy and marine ecology, with marine reef and estuarian ecology in the Mesoamerican region. She is responsible for binational collaboration between ECOSUR and NOAA with the University of Miami for oceanographic cruises in the Mesoamerican and Caribbean region. She is also the technical manager of the Mesoamerican Connectivity Exercise, ECOME, which is what we're going to talk about today, monitoring reef fish postlarvae of the Mesoamerican Reef System. She has trained, she still works and trains so many people, research groups, students, different colleagues in different marine protected areas of the SAM. She's responsible for the ECOSUR fish larvae collection and responsible for the Barcodes of Life barcode project. And as I was saying before, she has directed students and has been responsible and collaborator in more than 15 research projects with CONACYT, CONAVIOS, SACD, and MAR Fund. Lourdes, welcome. Just remember to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we have our webpage, marfund.org. And there you can find all of the different events that we have shared since 2022 until this date. And feel free to look at all the guests and their presentation. So Lourdes, you have the floor. Welcome again. Welcome to all the participants. We also hope that you enjoy today's presentation.
Muchas gracias, Elisa. Pero
No, thank you very much, Elisa. Okay.
Pero ya está te veo a ti, pero no veo
I can see you. I can't see the presentation. Should I share it again? Yes, please do. No problem. Right now we have 22 plus people on Facebook. So thank you again, Lourdes, for being with us. We can see your PowerPoint now. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Elisa, for the presentation. And thanks to Marfund for the invitation to present this seminar, which is, for me, so important. It's part of my research activity that I've carried out for so many years. I also want to thank all of the participants in the ECOME exercise, which amounts to so many people. This information is for them and for everyone else, so that you can learn a little bit more about the activities that we do in the ECOME with the monitoring of reef fish post-larvae. I am Lourdes Vasquez. I work in Colegio de la Frontera Sur. Welcome, everyone. I can't seem to change this slide. Okay, this is the slide that you already shared, so I'm not going to go into this. I'd like to put everyone in a little bit of context for those of you who don't know us and who don't have so much information. I wanted to tell you that ECOME started with 2 initial trainings workshops at the regional level with people from many different protected areas around the MAR, around the Colegio de la Frontera Sur, one in 2010, and the other, that was a first meeting in March, if I'm not mistaken. And after that, in 2012, we had the second workshop. Well, what did we want at that time? We wanted to raise awareness and promote a greater understanding of the biophysical Mesoamerican Reef System, its function, understand its function at the ecosystem scale among the protected marine areas. So here are 2 images from the events, and below are the logos of the institutions that planted the seed that then over time became ECOME. The result of these 2 meetings, and more, of course, was to create this connectivity exercise in Mesoamerica, where we laid the foundation, where we learned more about the areas across the MAR. And we had the opportunity to talk and to propose a connectivity exercise between different protected areas. The subject of study the reef fish post-larvae through monitoring. We
also did biophysical monitoring. It was a bit complicated, but there are areas that have been done. The life cycle is something pretty simple, which everybody here has an understanding, and it has 2 stages: the pelagic stage, where we have eggs and larvae of fish, and the post-larvae also make part of this phase, this stage, and it can last to 25 to 48 days, approximately, even to 6 months. And these first stages are subject to dispersion with many events that can happen on the reef line. The benthic stage is the juveniles and the youth that they reach the coastlines to reset the life cycle. We will dedicate to the knowledge of the postlarva, their colonization to the reef zones. And during the training, we did a training in the second and last meeting where we showed the people the different methods that we use for recruitment of fish, of the reef fish post larvae in coastal areas. And we have a network of canals and light traps, which are very selective. And beside it, we have a sample of what we can achieve with the light traps. And we have a column collector that is very simple. At the bottom, we have Laura measuring the parameters, which helps us correlate what we are finding to what we usually find. The art selected to take the monitoring, which we wanted to take in that moment, was the water column collector, which was for the next advantages. It was economic, it was selective in catching live fish, and it doesn't catch too many. It's sensible, and it catches live fish in most cases, which allows us to release them afterwards. And it's relatively easy to work in the field. And its maneuvering time is around 2 to 3 hours. There are places in the Mesoamerican Reef where it takes even less. Below we have a sample of what the water column collector can recollect. What we try to do is to standardize this way of working in all areas and in a simultaneous way. The water column collector, here are some pictures of how it looks underwater, and the way that it is removed in the day afterwards in the approximately 18 to 19 hours, and the recollection is 6 to 7 a.m. in the next day. There you can see the team with a recollecting bag and the buoy. It's a simple gear. And the maneuvers we realize on the field. Some more information about the methodology is first we place 10 stations, each represented by two water collectors, separated by 5 to 6 meters, but never close or stuck to each other. And it is mainly worked in new moon nights, because that has demonstrated that the post larvae that are ready normally come out post new moon, and during 7 to 9 days after. The ideal was that to work with two Mesoamerican connectivity systems a year. And it hasn't been very easy, so we have only been able to do one each year. And the 10 different stages have to be in a distance of 1 to 10 kilometers or 2 kilometers. So it can be a big distance, but there is a big difference if you put them too close to each other. This is how we started with the exercise. In September of 2013, we started with the first exercise, ECOME. First, we started with 8 natural regions which participated in the connectivity exercise, and here each one of them is enumerated. Honduras, in 2 in Honduras, 2 in Guatemala, in Punta Manamique. And Belize, we only started with 1, which is close to Honduras. And we initially worked in 2 sites, and in the national park, Isla Contoy, number 1. To install all of these, we created a protocol in Spanish and in English for installing the gears, for the temperature sensors as well, for those who had the knowledge to handle a temperature sensor. And that was in 2012. So there has already been a lot of time and a lot of experience that we have had, and the same protocols have changed throughout. This is a very simple image of 2014 of the work that was done in this exercise, in the third ECOME. At the beginnings of February, and the other one was done in September, and this image is about September. The identification work is very complicated and takes a lot of time, especially when we don't have examples to follow. In this case, in the Mexican regions, they share the material. We put them in collection and we give them a catalog number, and we take every data point necessary for the samples. But in Guatemala and Honduras, and in the south of Belize, I depend on Jose Angel, which is my colleague in this exercise. If we don't have the examples, it's very difficult to identify. And sometimes we don't have the images that have the right quality to give a right diagnostic. We try to identify.
Hemos hecho uso de herramientas genéticas. Afortunadamente ya hay proyectos en el sistema de Ball System.
There's already projects in ECOSUR, which I have fed with my own material and with also material from the exercises.
Haciendo una reactualización de los datos
right now, we are updating the data. This is the map that shows 3 connectivity exercises. As you can see, we're talking about 16 protected marine areas. In yellow, are the ones that we started working on in 2013. In white are the areas that we added year after year until last September. So you can see the coverage. We're talking about 7 Mexican protected marine areas, the Marine Area Reserve of Manatí, and we have 3 in Belize. Unfortunately, Turnif is not participating anymore. We also have Puerto Honduras that also stopped participating because of the costs of monitoring work. 2 in Guatemala who continue over time. And we have 3 representing Honduras. Guanaja, the very last on the list, Utila, and Roatan. This gives you an idea of how the number of marine areas have grown in the number of participating marine areas have grown in the ECOME. Now, here are some of the samples that we've collected for you, give you an idea of the fish post larvae from these exercises. Each of you who are watching, and probably some of you are ECOME members, you have collected and photographed these samples. Here are some more samples, and there are, of course, many more images, but we can't share all of them with you today because there's so many. Now, let's go over, let's review our results. My last analysis was in 2019, and I was invited to come speak to you today, so I quickly looked for some important data. This shows the interannual participation of marine areas from 2013 through 2023. I should have corrected these. It is 2023. With 8 areas in 2013. You can see on below are the years, and there it says E1, E2, that's ECOME 1, ECOME 2. And below that are the areas that were added to the ECOME monitoring exercises. In 2014, Tamir participated in both events, and then it didn't participate again. In 2015, Jumbalam added, which is north of the Caribbean on the Mexican side in Quintana Roo, and that same year Pacalarchir also joined. Then we have 2017, and they started participating in the Manatí Reserve, in the Bahia Chitumal Manatee Reserve. It's a state reserve. They started with us in 2017. Then we jumped to 2020. Guanaja joined. In 2021, Southwater Marine Reserve joined. And in 2022, the Caribbean Mexican Marine Biosphere joined. So here we have the history of how more and more have joined the event. And that shows us that in 2019, ECOME 9, which was in September, only 5 marine areas participated because that year in March, we had already had a greater number, but not all had the resources to participate again. So that's why you see that drop in the second ECOME in 2019. The maximum number of participants in an ECOME was in 2022, when the monitoring network was 10 years old, with 13 different protected marine areas working together. But actually, 16 have participated over the course of 11 years. I also wanted to point out that when the pandemic started, we did not suspend our monitoring exercises. And so I want to thank all of the areas who took the risk and participated. The personnel in the ECOME monitoring from 2013 to 2019 had been 537 people, 533 people. Right now, the 3 ECOMEs that have already taken place in 2013 through 2023, there are over 725 people, a little over 725 people. I don't have a final number. This is just an overarching summary, but I just wanted to point to this because you can see that many, many people have participated and they all count because they all contributed a grain of sand to get the results that each of the areas were able to achieve. Well, this monitoring effort went into review with 15,200 water collectors. Imagine more than 15,000 is really an incredible amount of reviews. And thanks to everyone for this great effort. The ECOME events are shown here, where we can see the different protected areas who participated. For instance, Umbalam participated 8 times, just to give you an idea. 8 ECOME Umbalam. Caribe Mexicano, the Mexican Caribbean, only 2 because it just joined. Panache, the National Xcalac Park, Rio Sartún, and Bicarratan are the areas that have participated in all 13 ECOM. Then we have Contoy with 12, and so on, and others have participated in varying number of times. Contoy, Xcalac, Rio Sartún, and Bicarratan have 96 to 100% of occurrence or presence in ECOME. And Southwater, Mexican Caribbean, Bicaguana, Tornel de Nif has only been at 2 events. It's a shame. Let's see if we can talk those colleagues into participating again. Results that we've had on the taxonomic composition of postlarvae. Here's a comparative table in ECOME 5. So we had the number of records is also the number of postlarvae that are collected or prepared, and we collect them, and in some cases we return the material. When there's too much material in the collector, we just keep a subsample and we return. That's why I have number of records here. From from the 1st to the 5th, we got 1,773 samples. In ECOME 9, 4,113. And in ECOME 13, we had 6,360. That's the number of records that we have for 13 different ECOMEs. The number of families, you can see from 28, we started with 28 when we did the first in ECOME 5. In ECOME 9, 39 families, and 13, 47 families. In terms of gender, they also increased. Currently, we've come up to 91. And number of species, currently we reported 125 different species with this column collector that you saw in the photographs. Also,
the families of fishes that have been monitored throughout the 13 events in 2021, 10 marine protected areas participated. And in this event, we collected 29 families. It was the year of the most capture, because in that moment we were in pandemic. This is very surprising. And which larvae were collected that weren't counted before, and which areas were participating in that moment, which still requires more analysis. But this is an idea for you. The water column collector is a selective art. It won't collect everything that's outside. There's many other things too outside that we will not collect because they're not sensitive to this collect. But this is what we have been reporting with the water column collector, which is a good indicator. There are more results from the taxonomy. It has created a whole list of all the different species that we have found, and the ones we haven't been able to identify are 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 stated as SP or SPP. And it's a very big list. On the left side, you can see the dominant families and the relative percentage of abundance, which were recollected with the water column collector. The most prevalent family is the Carnegate, which is the one that was most abundant. And the Tetradontidae was the second one. Then is Labridae, Emulidae, the Apogonidae, Luthanidae, which are very important for everybody because of the economic value. The Sgeridae, the Scaridae, and I will continue because there's many. And in last place, the Antenaridae, which is the species that we collect. We have an interannual variation in postlarvae abundance in the 13 events of the exercise monitoring. You can see a very abundance in one of the events, and was 6,000 exemplars, which below are the years and the number of the event and which year, and below it's ECOME 1 and ECOME 2. This is a beauty of a work because it tells you what has been found in the Mesoamerican Reef in those 11 years. And this is an image of the Cantigaster, which have been present throughout the 13 events. We didn't see them in March of 2019. We don't know the reason, but they weren't present. But generally, they were present with a big abundance of 20 to 15 examples or samples. The points where I show is when the abundance was very notable and is related to events of death of other fish. And in total, it was 1,007 registers of this species. And it has a recurrence over all of the Mesoamerican Reef of the 92%. Here we have the Monacanthidae, or filefish, and it has a periodicity of with not many ups and downs. It's much more stable. In 2014, there's a peak, and it's represented by 3 species. But the most important is the Monacanthus cilianthus. In general, they are collected in 396 samples, and the recurrence is of 100%. They're always present in the region. And then we have the Antenaridae family, and where we find the sargassum fish. I love this image because it shows us that in 2015, there was too many sargassum in the coasts of America. In 2016, we couldn't see them, but in 2017, they started appearing till this date. And each event, we find more than 10 samples. And there isn't any other explanation than and before we only would find this sample 1 or 2 times with very little presence. And this very precious family that I find is the Pargos, which has a recurrence of 100%. And we have, throughout the 13 exercises, we have found 290 registers. And they're in a very interesting phase because if you can see from 2020, we start to see a rise. And in 2022 is the peak, the maximum peak. They're characterized by 4 to 5 species throughout this sound. This is a comparison of the ECOME versus the events in 2004, 2005, and 2006. Here, I would like you to look at the right side of your screen. You can see the Acaranturidae, the Labridae, the Scaridae. They have reduced, or they have data of less abundance in the connectivity exercise. And this is an exercise that implies the whole Mesoamerican reef. The blue, orange, and yellow bars only imply we have never been able to do an exercise of this size. So imagine the strength that they had in that time, the Acanturidae, the Labridae, and the Pargos, and the Monocanthidae, and the Scaridae. Those are the parrotfish. Now, we have a very important increment in postlarvae of Jureles, and that is very different than what we had received in previous events. And so the botetes also incremented a lot. This is a very interesting point in Roatan. In Roatan, we register the biggest abundance of botetes fish. But please, I want to make it clear the contrast that there is of the percentage of relative abundance that there was in the past in respect to what the ECOMEs are providing with their exercises.
A un proyecto que se metió a participar en pequeñas
donaciones. This was a project with small donations by MAR Fund, and ECOSUR considered that this effort was very important and it gave us a grant, and it was recognized. It was led by Dr. Loy Sosa and Laura Carrillo Estrella Malca, and myself were the collaborators in this project. So I wanted to share with you that this was a concrete effort in 2019, and we were able to cover 2 events, ECOME events in 2019, one in March and one with that money. And these are some of the pictures of you, those of you who are watching us, you participating, you are there working out in the ECOME events, and you can see that your work has results. And I've been showing you the results. Here are some of the pictures in the last ECOME. Here's some more pictures that show all the work, how you need to fill in the information for a sample, and look at how happy they are doing this work on the boat. This is a picture from in Mahahual in Mexico. Here's some colleagues from Roatan and others from Guanaja. Here's some general conclusions of all this effort. As you know, we've participated from 2013 to 2023. That's 13 ECOME events with the participation of 7 to 13 marine protected areas. Each event, between 7 and 13 was the variation. There's been support from over 725 people involved at all levels, administrators, forest rangers, technicians, students, volunteers, just passers-by, curious people from the community. This has been the number of people involved. We have reviewed over 15,000 collected samples in concrete, 47 families, and over 125 species collected. I've written 125, but we still need to identify some species. The dominant families, as I said before, are the puffers, the jacks, the firefish, the cardinal fishes, which are the motor, very important because they're well known to be cryptovents, which is a contribution. They are like the gasoline to make the whole reef system, to make it work. It's a very interesting and beautiful contribution in Belize by Southwater. As for previous records in 2004 to 2006, as I showed you, there have been important changes that we've seen in our comparison with snappers, parrotfish, surgeon fishes recorded a decreased in number in the column collectors. In Jumalam are contrasting areas in the salmon. It all has its reason because they don't share fauna with so many other areas. Continuous, ongoing training. In fact, the ECOMEROS, I call everybody who participates with us, I call you ECOMEROS, or ECOME people, have been replicating the material. They've become trainers. And myself have also trained on an ongoing basis. We've had 2 meetings in person in 2016 and 2019, 2 network meetings. I think it's time for a 3rd meeting. I hope we can do it. It's desirable to continue with the monitoring work. Of course it is. This is so important. Each of the participating areas has, and they've started to create a collection of postlarvae, and this is invaluable. You can't calculate the value. So please don't forget this material. And on an ongoing basis, change the alcohol every year if you can. change the alcohol so that your samples stay in the best condition. If the tag is damaged, put a new ticket on because you have an invaluable treasure. I invite you to see it from that point of view as well. Those are the collections that we have. Now, there are capacities to provide continuity and ownership of the ECOME monitoring. I'm sure that the capacities are out there so that ECOME can continue. I'm sure they're installed in each and every participant, particularly those who have worked with us for over 4 or 5 ECOMEs. So you just have to feel the ownership of this methodology for monitoring and continue to do it. Now, we're located in a stressed system, distressed by contamination, overfishing, invasive species, climate change. So anything we can do to help is very important right now. That's why this project lays the foundation. It's laying the foundation, is documenting fish post-larvae in the reefs. And this is important because most of these species are potential fishing resources, particularly the fish that are economically important. The ecological importance are important because they're just important. They're part of this wonderful chain, the food chain, as I was telling you about the cardinal fishes. Well, I am very grateful to MAR Fund, the staff in all areas, the technicians, the students, the fishermen, and my colleagues, everyone who supported the ECOME all these years. The technical of Jose Angel and Hugo here in ECOSUR, he's my right hand, and the one who supports me the most, Laura Carrillo, Eloy Sosa, Estrella Marca, are all co-responsible for this effort, and we share everything you've seen here. These are the logos of the different participating organizations, and I want to thank each and every one of them for always being there to complete this ECOM, the exercise for connectivity in the Mesoamerican area. Thank you very much, Lourdes. Thank you from the bottom of our heart, from the whole ECOME team, ECOSUR, all of the natural protected areas, all of our colleagues in the MAR area. Really, congratulations to all of you. What a great number of data you have collected and species you've identified. We're going to congratulate you. Let's take advantage that we have some questions on the chat to close our wonderful meeting. This year has been a challenge, but there's been a lot of success as well. So let's see.
Áreas de Guatemala, que no sé si podemos ponerlo en el gráfico, pero si se ven diferentes.
In what way are the Rio Sarzun and Manambique contrasting? They have some species that others don't have, is what I understand. Says to the youth that asked me, in Guatemala, those reefs are very deep. They are under 9 or 12 meters. That creates a very big difference in the disembarking of the river, which is very close to that bay in Guatemala, creates a big difference with respect to the other areas of the Mesoamerican Reef. There is 1 or 2 families that Guatemala shares with Yumbalam, which is more up north in the Mesoamerican Reef, which is close to that area. That is where we do the exercise. And there they do share in abundance the species. But in general, those faunas are different to what there is in the rest of the Mesoamerican reef because of the characteristics of the reef system itself. Thank you. It is we have to investigate much more deeply. There's a lot to do, really, Elisa. Definitely. And you definitely need help. And Sergio tells us, climate change, in your opinion, is accelerating the succession and ecological displacements of some fish species, mainly commercial species, in addition to other factors such as overfishing, loss of degradation of reefs, and other important aggregation sites, such as seagrasses, mangroves, etc. What do you think? I think that climate change, in seen as extreme event in ambients that are sensible to temperature, it can cause this change of species, and it's something that has to be explored. And I believe it can be true, but it has to be documented and explored, because I cannot say that it is, in my opinion, because then I can't say what is my scientific evidence of this. I would like to tell you that in the case of the pufferfish, that species that had it peak in, and that it dominates that abundance, that graphic of abundance, had a lot of loss in, and it has a relationship with. I'm very familiar with this species because I worked with this species. And why it happens along the whole of the Mesoamerican reef, even down in Colombia and Costa Rica and Roatan as well. There hasn't been a real explanation for these losses. But in what we believe is that temperature creates this problem. And from what I've been able to investigate from the zoological point of view, that the temperature is a detonator for the reproductive activity. And so it has an immediate reflection on the populations, definitely. So I believe, and I have evidence, seeing it with a colleague here from ECOSUR, that those peaks that we see in pufferfish have a very big, very high correlation with temperature. And so I definitely believe that there can be that influence from the climate change referring to temperature and increase of temperature for displacement of species, or that we find them or that we don't find some species. But that has to be represented with true data from scientific investigation. Thank you, Sergio. Very well. And we also have this question. Is it possible to infer connectivity in the distribution and dispersion of larvae throughout this region from this program? And if it can be determined the genetical connectivity of populations throughout the current, or if it's each site is a distinct case. There have been studies that have demonstrated. Here in ECOSUR, we did a study that we were doing modeling for two species of fish that were very commercial. It was a doctoral thesis that was done. And can it be done? Yes. But it has to be done when this is prepared. It's very important to have the objective of this material, because if we commit a mistake and we don't have the right objective, that material will not work for genetical studies. But I believe that yes, but what we started to do with this exercise was to document the diversity of postlarvae, which are part of the different areas of the Mesoamerican Reef. That was one of the first objectives. And to this day, now that we have recognized more than 125 species, but from that, there's other objectives, which is the variation of these species throughout the time and throughout the system. But now doing studies of connectivity and genetic connectivity are much more complicated, because we have to take into account all the necessities to do that study. Thank you. That could be a next step. I want to thank all the participants, and we will stay a few more minutes to answer other questions. But if anyone that needs to leave to another meeting, feel welcome, and thank you so much. We are at your disposal. And if we can share, lower her email. And from the part of MARPAN, we would like to thank everybody that has been part of our seminars and presentations throughout the years. So if now we're in the chat, we're gonna share a short poll so that we can have some retroalimentation from the webinars and what you have shared. And I will give word to the final questions of the day. Felipe, welcome. Hello, everybody. I wanted to say a comment referring to the last question. Thanks to the material that has been preserved using alcohol, we were able to do genetic studies because the larvae were preserved, as in we took a piece of tissue and we did a much more deep study of the tissue, a genetical study. And we would have to choose to work with a species that is throughout many regions. But the merit of this, it allows posterior studies. It's very excellent that someone from a doctorate would like to do this in their country. That is true. It gives space to colleagues to work, and also for thesis. So we will have to keep collecting more samples or go to Lourdes's collection in Mexico to use them, to use that valuable material for study. It would be good to have a public event for the communities in the schools before the ECOME, so that they can understand more about the reef and the fishes, and that way they can be more conscious which I think is a very good idea. I am very much agreeing with Victor's commentary, and I have to get to know all these sites before finishing this stage of my work. And it's been very meritorious to work with such people, and it's been an honor. But definitely, this is something we have to do to raise consciousness to youth and children that can value the treasure that they have.
Es súper cierto, y pues ellos son los que nos siguen, ¿verdad? Entonces, tal vez
So, and they are the ones that will follow us. So we have to give them that spark to follow on our work.
Muchísimas gracias, Lord. Te
Thank
saludan
you so
aquí en
much.
el chat. Marcos Cerezo, muchas gracias. Estrella Malca, gracias, Lulu, por este resumen. Muchísimas otras personas y
Okay, we
colegas.
want to thank Lourdes and all the institutions and colleagues that have participated. Congratulations so much. It's really great work that you've done. I think we've seen patterns in these graphics that you shared with us, Lourdes, and before and after the pandemic, what's been going on, right? And the before and after the law, when the Mexico approved the law for the protection of the parrotfish. So really, there's so much information that could be pointed to see what's going on in different areas across the MAR, because really so many times we've seen that the populations, fish populations, some have decreased, others have increased when we look at all of the different areas, which is what the ECOME does. And it's really great work that you've done so far. You, the whole team, the colleagues across the MAR, but really there's so much data to analyze. So it makes it even more exciting. So yes, that's right, Elisa, and I am fascinated with all this information. I want every member of ECOME, every ECOMero who's watching to feel proud of participating in this, because we're building something for our region. And let me tell you, this connectivity exercise is not happening anywhere else in the world. No, nobody's doing it. Look for it. Google it. But right now, what we're doing in this MAR region, the SAM region, is unique, and I'm so happy to be a part of this with all of you. And Elisa, really, if we don't know what is out there, then we cannot conserve it. The first step is to know what is out there. Now, the water column collector is a sensitive artifact that collects certain species, but there are others that we could use that'll give you a better perspective of the situation. What this does, this is what it collects. And it gives us signals, but light traps, who can work a light trap? There's an enormous amount of organisms that are collected, and that's why we chose the WCC to do this monitoring exercise at the regional level intensively, simultaneously, and of course stand in a standardized way. Thank you so much. I think we can share your email, load this, so that everybody who's connected can, there can be more people to join this effort. And again, Marfan congratulates you and all the colleagues who've been watching. Thank you for being with us. Please share this valuable information that you learned today, and watch for what's coming in the coming years. So in the chat, again, congratulations to everyone and our invited teacher and all the teams in ECOSUR. And so this is the closing of our webinar today and of our webinar sessions this year. There will always be more questions. there'll always be more information to share. So next year, we could continue this space for the colleagues. And our doors are open, as our guest said, so that you can write to her. So greetings, everyone, and thank you very much for being with us again. Lourdes, thanks for taking the time to be with us. And thank you very much. Everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you, and thank you to everyone for your time. This has been very valuable for me so that you learn what it's all about and what we've achieved over this period of time. 1,000 thanks and congratulations to everyone for the holidays. Yes, congratulations, thank you, and see you next year. Yeah, see you next year. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you. Congratulations. It's the same.